Hi, I'm James and this is Groovebox Music Theory. So far I've talked about chords like they're very literal, like they are these three notes in this specific order every time, but chord charts actually require a lot of interpretation. And that's because they don't take into account inversions or arrangement most of the time. Inversions are when you take the same notes of like a major chord, but you play them in a different order on the same instrument, while arrangement is when you take those same notes and you have different instruments playing it. At least that's what arrangement means in this specific context. Slash chords are a chord that specifies a type of arrangement, so it tells you what the bass is playing, and that'll make more sense later on in the video. I just want to give you kind of a preview. This is a really different video in that sense because the whole thing is exceptions, right? You really need to have a sense of arrangement and inversions if you want to fully interpret a chord chart, because it's not going to tell you literally what to do for every single note. But I actually think this is cool because it means that you can take notes on your own songs and you don't have to write it all down. I think that's a pretty powerful note-taking tool because it'll allow me to remember what I did, but still give me some sense of, okay, I can play around with these different things and try these other inversions or try this different arrangement. And it helps me remember what I did without feeling like I have to always play that same thing every time. On top of that, if you have a small synthesizer or a Groovebox or something, this is going to make a world of difference because it's the difference between having, one C major chord and then having four. Like, I'll show you later on the OP1. It's a 2-octave keyboard. There's one obvious C major in it, but if you know your inversions, there's actually 4 of them that you can play instead of just one. So it can really open up a lot for you there. For your practice, you're going to take the songs that you've been working on and just play around with different inversions. So this is going to be a bit more exploratory and experimental after I teach you these basic concepts. And with that being said, let's go ahead and go to the keyboard. Let's start off by talking about inversions. Why is it called an inversion? Well, if you invert something, it means that you flip it upside down, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing with these chords. So if I take an F major chord, let's find the root, 5, 3, with these 3 semitones in between, so it's major. What if I play this F up here? That is an inversion. So it's the same notes, because the F major chord is just F, A, and C, but if I play it A, C, and F, it's still the same chord, the notes are just in a different order. This is called the first inversion, which you don't really have to know, but I just thought it might be interesting to learn the term, because there's one note that's been moved up here. That's how I think of it, at least. We could also move this A up here, right? So now we've got the C is actually the lowest note, followed by our F and our A, which you can just barely see there. It would be this same chord. So that is another F major chord. That's the F major second inversion. Now, usually the inversion isn't specified by a chord chart, so you're going to have to figure out what sounds best to you. And to me, this is kind of where the fun begins. So let's go ahead and go back to the song The One by Taylor Swift, which is just F major to C major. But if you listen to the studio version, she's not just playing this F major and this C major, she's playing inversions of both of them, and it has a really cool effect that you might learn something from for your own songs, or for songs you want to play along with. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with that F major, and I'm actually going to just go ahead and, spoiler alert, it's a second inversion. So that means that in this case, I'm going to pretend like I start here, move the F up here, move the A up here. There's my F major second inversion. So the song goes from this to a C major, but it plays this C up here. So we have this F major, C major. And I think that works really well because you have these 2 notes here in that F major, the F and the A, and to me it sounds like they kind of move from here to the E and the G. Meanwhile, it sounds to me also like the C is going from down here to up here. And so I think it gives this really basic chord, F to C, this really basic chord progression, just kind of, I don't know, just a very interesting sound. Now, if you look up this song on Ultimate Guitar, it'll sometimes specify that it is playing C major over E. That technically refers to the full C major chord with an E being played in the bass line. But like I said, these chord charts don't always say the inversions the way they're supposed to be, so they're actually just referring to this C chord. But I'm just letting you know that you may see a bass note specified, and that sometimes is how chord charts will specify inversions. It's also how you could note them down for yourself, if that makes sense to you. There are some limitations to that, which I'll go over later in this video, because slash chords, it can be very helpful to actually note what's really playing in the bass line as a separate instrument, and I'll talk about that soon. If we play video games, just like I've been playing it so far, or actually I think I started up here. Sounds fine, sounds recognizable, but to me it's not how my brain hears the song, and every time I try to play how it sounds to me, I notice it's not the same as the studio version, but it's fun to be able to play it how it sounds in my head. So let's start off with our chords there. They are F sharp minor, A, which repeats, then C sharp minor and D. So our F sharp minor here, I like to play this like a second inversion, which I just mean I'm moving this C sharp down here. So I have this inversion of F sharp minor, and I have this A major. But I play the A major with this E moved down here. So, and the advantage of this is now my hand is really close to where I'm going to be playing my C sharp minor chord, which I'm just going to play how I have been, and the D major how I've been playing it. So the advantage of getting good at this is that eventually you'll be able to play the chords wherever you want. And this is going to be a bit of an extreme example, but once you get the hang of the 3 inversions for each major and minor chord and really sitting down and working out, okay, what can I move to make this sound different, you can make some interesting creative choices. For example, what if I wanted to play the song Video Games moving up for that whole verse part? I can do it. It's not going to sound pretty and it will not be done quickly, but I can do that with my knowledge of inversions. Let me show you. So I've got this, I'll just play a regular F sharp minor, I'll play a regular A major, and then for this F sharp minor, I'll play this inversion right here. I'll play this inversion of an A major. Oh, I guess I want to keep moving up, so I play this for the C sharp, and that for the D major. Then going down, I could just play F major, A major, oh boy, F major, A major, C sharp minor, and then D major. So my point is that you can make a lot of creative choices, and they don't just have to be that simple. It could be something like you play just the regular chords with no inversions for the first verse, and then when you return to that, maybe that's when you add in some of those inversions. But my point is that this will lead you to being able to make choices that allow for other instruments to sound better, or just allow for you to play the song the way that it sounds in your head, or at least closer to it. So let's say I have a Groovebox that has a small keyboard like this OP1 right here. If I say play C major, you might just say, easy, that's C major. If I say play another C major, well, before I wouldn't have known what to do until I learned inversions. Now I can play 4 C majors on this 2-octave keyboard. There's one right here, there's one right here, there's one right here, and then there's one right here. So those are all C major chords, but different inversions. Okay, so I'm going to play the first part of Bad Guy by Billie Eilish because I think it'll help illustrate this point. So I'm going to go ahead and move this down an octave so I can play the bass part here. And then I'm going to have this other track playing the melody, so I'm going to move up real quick. My point is that there are only single notes being played. But you might call this a G minor part, and that's accurate, because if I decide then to play, I'll just play something in the same range, whatever. If I play this G minor chord, you'd probably say, yeah, that's more or less what that part sounds like. Not pretty, but if I played like a G major chord, you'd immediately know it's wrong. That sounds pretty awful, right? So the point is that if you know these notes, and they're in any of these tracks, then you would still use that same chord to describe it. But sometimes it'll tell you exactly which note to play in the bass line. So I've talked about this a little bit ago, where I said that in The One by Taylor Swift, sometimes you'll see it notated where it's called C over E. And like I said, I don't love that. And the reason for that is that sometimes you're going to actually have the bass part have a note specified. They're called slash chords. And it's usually notated with the name of the chord slash the note that's going to be played by the bass part. So either by the bass instrument or by your left hand, depending on how you're doing that. So if I were to play a G major over D, so a G slash D, it would look like this. But it could also just look like, let's turn the metronome back on. It could also just look like this. Let's make it even lower. That's also G over D, or G slash D. So you can move these around however you want between different instruments, etc., but you would still use the same terms to describe that chord. So that's another way that you can really interpret chord charts and kind of figure out what they're trying to say and use, put in some of your own creative ideas into your covers or whatever you're trying to do. Okay, so that's all I had to say about inversions, arrangement, and slash chords. So for your practice this time, I would suggest you take a bit more of a creative or exploratory approach, where you take the chords from the songs that you're learning and see what happens if you play different inversions. What if you try to play inversions so that the notes of the chords all stay in about the same spot? What if you play it as it moves up or down? How does that affect how you feel when you hear it? So you can play along to the studio version and try to figure out what arrangement and inversions they're using, or you could always just find your own and see what affects you the most emotionally, or what you associate the most with the song personally, or what just sounds good to you. It's also completely valid if you take a chord progression from a song that you like, change it around enough with enough difference in arrangement, and have it be your own song. That could be the start of an original song for you. There's no reason to say that you have to start off with original chords every single time, especially if you're messing with the arrangement and stuff. So we're going to wrap up this series next lesson with 6 more common chord types. So those are going to be the 7th chords, which include 7th, major 7th, minor 7th. They're going to be suspended chords, and then diminished and augmented chords. So that's what I'm going to cover next lesson, and it's all going to be built off of your major and minor chords that we learned last lesson. So thank you so much for watching, and please let me know if you have any questions.